Hey, y'all, did y'all miss us? Because we sure miss you. Look, watch, like, and subscribe to our channel at Sister Sis 1988, as well as follow us on all our social media platforms at Sister Sis 1988. We're coming to you today with another phenomenal episode. But first, I'm Jamie.
I'm Latoya.
And I'm Calandra.
And yes, we have a wonderful show today coming in, bringing in Miss Rhonda Williams out of GA. We are going to let her give us just a small summary of who she is, and then we're going to dive into these questions.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rhonda Williams. I am proud to say I am a retired, enjoying retirement life, retired educator, twice married and twice widowed. And so those experiences have truly shaped the person that I am today and the experiences that I love to just share with people.
Right. Okay. Welcome.
Well,
yes, thank you.
Joining and sharing your story with us today. So we'll go ahead and dive.
All right. So we're going to talk about relationships. So what are the key elements that contribute to a successful marriage?
So there are lots of things that contribute to a successful marriage, but I think one of the first and most fundamental pieces is you both have to define marriage the same way. If you don't have the same of what marriage is, then you'll be operating kind of in silos and creating environments for miscommunication and misunderstanding. And so having the same definition of what marriage is, having that shared understanding, and that shared understanding creates kind of a dynamic of trust, honesty, and respect. You've got two people who've been raised in different environments coming together to live together, build a life together. It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense that it should work. But God has created this institution of marriage, and he's given us the tools and the resources to make it work. And so when we adhere to his definition of what marriage is, then it works. Will it be perfect? No. Will you have problems? Yes. But when you have a shared understanding, accepting the definition of marriage that God stipulates in his word and adhere to those biblical principles, that is a successful marriage.
Okay. So how important is communication with marriage?
It's critical. Every relationship requires some kind of communication. Even when a mother has an infant child, there's communication, there's nonverbal communication going between the two. So when you talk about something as complex as a marriage relationship, it's fundamental. And the way to facilitate that is to engage in it. And sometimes there'll be missteps. Sometimes we'll get it wrong. Sometimes we'll misunderstand each other or misconstrue what someone has said because we bring to our understanding our experience. So if I say, this is what brings me contentment or joy, and you say this is what it could be completely different. And so that's why we have to massage all of that through until the other party has a real full understanding of what's happening. And so marriage is a very intimate and personal relationship, and so communication is essential.
Right.
It really is. It really, really is. So what role does trust play in a long-lasting marriage, and how can couples build or rebuild trust?
So I think sometimes people think trust just kind of falls from the sky. And, when you make that commitment, it's there. It's not. Trust is something that is built from experiences. So, for example, if I say, hey, let's meet for dinner at 7 at such and such a restaurant, and you show up, you're there. Okay, that's a good experience. And so if I have an accumulation of those experiences, I know that what you say you will do,
you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's so it's the accumulation of the experiences that say, hey, I know I can trust this person because XYZ, 1, 2, 3, he or she has followed through on just what he or she has said. Or going back to the example, meeting for dinner at 7, let's say you don't make it at 7, you don't get there till 8, you're late, but you've called and you've said, hey, I'm running late. So you make adjustments for issues, for differences. And when you're wrong, you have to admit you're wrong. When you can't admit you're wrong, it's hard to develop a strong foundation of trust. So it's the experiences, the accumulation of those experiences that help to build trust, and having a sense of humility, admitting when you're wrong, owning up to your mistakes, and let your life, let your experiences, your lived experiences determine if you are trustworthy or not.
Okay.
All right.
So my question would be, so how can couples effectively manage conflicts or disagreements without damaging the relationship?
So, like I said from the beginning, when you think about marriage, just from a very practical perspective, it doesn't make sense that people could make it. But if we, like I said, adhere to those biblical principles, we can. And when we talk about conflicts will happen. It's inevitable. You can't avoid them. And so it's important for couples not to rely on their natural inclination to get mad at the person, but to focus on the issue. And so I wrote a book that we'll talk about a little bit later. And in it, give some suggestions about how to manage disagreements and conflicts. And one is to have some rules of engagement. All right, we are not going to name call. We are not going to yell. We're going to have a time limit. So we're going to resolve this before we put our heads to the pillow. We're not waking up with the same issue. Doing that helps you to develop healthy skills to resolve conflict. Because if your feelings are hurt, your natural inclination is, don't you talk to me that way, is to address the person. And so you're skirting the issue. You're not dealing with the issue that brought you to that place in the first place. And so I encourage couples to kind of reflect themselves to see what kind of strategies work best. It might be, I'm not talking to you for the next 20 minutes because I'm about to go write down every single thing that you did that made me mad. It might be a strategy, and that's okay, because it will give you time to process, it'll give you time to calm down, and it'll help you to focus on the issue. So those are ways to kind of resolve conflicts and disagreements. Coming up with a plan. Don't wait until you're in the midst of it and say, oh, well, I think the better way for us to address this is when it's a little too late. Then that has to be some of the front loading, that talk that you have, when you're in the goo goo gaga stage.
How do you get your partner, because just say you may be on board with having a plan to plan in advance, but then your partner may not be. So then what would you recommend for someone you may have trouble with your partner actually engaging?
So I would just start with like 2 or 3 rules. Okay, so when we're gonna get in a disagreement, and when we do, no name calling. And if you can't have the conversation before and you have to have it during, then you're gonna have to say, hey, we can't call each other names. We're not gonna yell. Let's take it down a notch. All right, let's walk away and come back. Those kind of things. But yeah, if at all possible, try in the beginning, just keeping it simple, and say the goal is to resolve the issue, to facilitate reconciliation. We want to come back together so that we have peace and love and joy, communion with one another. We don't want conflict. That's not how we work. We work better when we're, so you can get there.
Right.
So, what are some strategies to keeping the romance alive in a long-term marriage or a long relationship? But the goal is marriage.
The goal is marriage. So I have kind of 4 kind of go-tos. One is pray together and for each other, first and foremost, and then set aside time weekly without distraction. So if they're children, that they got to be doing something else, so that you can connect and talk. because life is busy. Work
Mhm.
consumes a lot of people. And if you have children, then that just adds to, sports events and lessons for this or in-laws and community organizations and churches and whatever you're involved in. And next thing you know, you haven't talked to your spouse in like a week and a half. You like haven't had a conversation other than, hey, can you pick up the kids? Hey, I forgot to get this from the store. That's not a
Yeah.
relationship. That's not what you came together for.
Yeah.
So being intentional about protecting your time and ensuring that you have that. So I'd say at least weekly, you need to connect. And if there's nothing going on, it's just spending time with each other. Y'all don't even have to talk. You can just, cuddle and snuggle. The other is to do a monthly relationship checkup. Hey, how are we? How's our relationship going? Is there anything that's kind of been that you had in the back of your mind, wanted to talk about, didn't talk about, but we need to address? Or um, I'm feeling kind of burnt out. I'm feeling like I'm carrying a heavy load for this relationship. Let's talk about how we can shake things up a little bit. Or I'm getting bored. Need to spice it up. What can we?
Okay.
But we need to be honest about where we are in our relationship, because a lot of times people just kind of let things fester and then
Mhm.
they blow up and cause irrevocable damage. And so to avoid that, doing those little relationship checkups, and then you can kind of see how you're growing together. And then always date night. And date night doesn't always have to involve money. You
Mhm.
can be very creative about how to do a date night, but you want to keep that fun in the relationship, be creative, try new things together, learn new things together, be silly together, those
Right.
kind of things.
And you know what, Miss Rhonda, I'm loving where we're going here. Thank you. First of all, let me say that. But we did another interview with a older married couple. And
Mhm.
I think I would like for you to watch that. But one thing that she did say, the kind of the things that you're listing are things that they did or are doing,
Oh,
even after
okay.
in their marriage. One thing she said, one thing that they have done, one thing they've done, they never went to bed mad at each other.
Mhm.
They make sure to kiss each other goodbye in the morning when they both
Mhm.
for work, and they always travel together, at least
Yeah.
frequently actually, but I think it's once every 3 months. I don't remember. I don't know if you Landon or Toya remember how often it was, but they travel frequently. But those things are things, and they have two children, adults now. But I'm just saying those things, a lot of things that you are mentioning, and they are of the kingdom. So
Mhm.
you know, it's just amazing that the things that you are mentioning and how long ago we did that podcast with them, because what is that, 2 years ago now? Are things that while they are still married, that they've said that they have maintained in their marriage and why they've been able to, stay married. So it's like, you can't deny it. Those things do work. They never said that they've never had an argument. They didn't say that. What they said is it's just ways to work through it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Think about
Right.
all three of us when we listened to them, we were like, okay, maybe this can work. Because when you get mad, you mad. You know how sometimes mad, you're not thinking about all that. You mad. You just I want to tell them how it feels. And just how you're saying how you can handle that. And I just like how this flow is going. But we're gonna end it here. And we're gonna bring you back because this is a hot show. So
Until next time.
there is strength in sisterhood.
And supporting sisterhood.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.